I think it's
It looks fine on the
it's the
So
monitor.
it's that monitor.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Like
Yeah,
if you
it's
see,
tilted.
it's a little lifted this way.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So like
Yeah.
if you stand up, you should you should like
Yeah,
want-
no,
yeah.
It's, I just wanted to make sure it was monitored, not like,
Yeah, as long as
what are you doing?
trying to make sure Mike knows.
No, we're good.
Okay.
Good. Drink. You guys ready?
Yeah, we can start recording whenever. We don't have an intro
Like I
yet,
said,
Tyler,
it's been
so-
recording.
Oh,
so.
even better because
But yeah, I don't know if you want to do like a little thing with the music.
Welcome.
I don't know.
Hold on. All right, you wanna intro us in?
Welcome,
No, that's aggressive.
welcome to the FHB podcast with your host Ron Diddy, and here on the ones and twos we got Michael.
I gotta switch the camera. What's
There
up?
you go.
What's up? Camera's right there. Camera's right
We
there.
got here Ryan, and then we have our guest Tyler. All this is getting edited out.
Yeah, I think we have to.
Oh, this one. Go ahead.
Especially the cheers.
Nice.
All right, cool. All right, let's load the music. All right, let's start this thing.
See your DJ voice. So Tyler, welcome to our show. Thank you for coming.
What's up, Tyler?
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, for sure. Tyler, we'd like to start off first with just, introducing yourself and tell us what you were doing before real estate.
Sure. So prior to real estate, I graduated from college, just as a background, in 2016. Got a job in finance, worked at Ernst & Young, which is one of the big four accounting firms, for about 3 years. I worked in the structured products division, which actually does have a real estate component to it. So I did a little bit of valuation of mortgage-backed securities, which is a big buzzword with '08 and everything that crashed the financial markets and created a lot of opportunities for investors and people sitting at this table as well. Did that for a few years. I actually bought my first couple properties while I was still working there. Took advantage of having a good W-2, was able to get some good financing, did a house hack. I actually did a rental with a seller financing agreement, something I did out of necessity of just having no money to invest but wanting to invest. So I was able to make that happen with a business partner of mine. And then eventually left Ernst & Young, worked a year at a hedge fund, bought some more properties, actually started my construction business while I was there, and it just wasn't feasible to keep doing both at the same time. So jumped into construction and real estate full time a little over 2 years ago now.
Nice. We got so much to dissect.
Yeah.
So when you were working in Ernst & Young, you said with your W-2 income, you bought your first property.
Yep.
So how did you kind of, come to terms that you're like, I got to buy a property?
I just read a lot of books, listened to a lot of Bigger Pockets, like I know you guys do as well. So that just got me thinking. I actually read the Buying Houses with No or Low Money Down. It's funny, I happened to leave the book at my buddy's house. He read it by chance, and he's like, hey, we got to do this. Nice. So we just started calling everybody that had a for sale by owner property on Craigslist. This was 2017, and we were eventually able to land one. It was a duplex. We made that into a student rental property, and then the first one I bought with my actual, W-2 traditional mortgage was a 203K house hack in the Newark area, and actually Michael was my realtor for that. So that's how I met you guys.
Yeah, we met on Bigger Pockets, right?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah.
All of us.
Literally all of us met through
crazy.
Bigger Pockets. That's crazy. So wait, your first one.
Mm-hmm.
So why, because you read the book, you decided to go the unconventional route? Because I figured first deal, most people are going to say MLS, right?
Yeah. So to be honest, man, it was just out of necessity. Coming right out of college, I had barely enough money to pay my rent, so I didn't have $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 sitting aside yet to buy properties. And buying with low or no money down, the title just stuck out, and it didn't seem too hard to do. We put together a basic agreement and then just started, having the conversation, seeing what sellers would be open to it. Eventually we ran into, it was a professor. I believe her husband took care of the property prior, but they had gotten a divorce, so it was just a little bit too much for her to handle. She didn't really need the money. She just wanted to, offload the responsibility. So I explained the tax benefits of doing the seller financing agreement, and eventually she was on board, and we held that one for about 4 years, and we sold it. I want to say about 6 months ago now, for about 60% more than we got it for, with
Nice.
pretty much no value add really done. Did a couple rooms of flooring, but it was really just out of necessity, to be honest. Having no money and wanting to get in the game.
Yeah. No, I mean, props to you. Most people, like, I mean, even me, like, I know it took me an extra like year and a half because I didn't even know that existed.
Yeah.
In my mind, I'm like, well, I got to wait for a down payment. I got to work. So
Right.
that's awesome. If you don't mind, you don't have to share. Can you break down like what that seller finance looked like? Very basic, but just curious.
Yeah, so it was a $92,000 purchase price. We got $90,000 finance, brought literally $2,000 to the table, and it's low closing costs too, right? Because you don't have to pay any lender fees, no mortgage application costs, no points, nothing like that. You're literally paying your attorney fee, your title fees, and that's pretty much it. Your inspection. We got an inspection done on that one. So it was $90K. We financed it over a 30-year term. There was a balloon payment in year 20 if the deal had went that long, which obviously it didn't. And then we brought the $2K to close, and I believe it was a 4% interest rate. So it was good.
That's so good.
Which at the time I believe was lower than we would have even gotten with a conventional investment property mortgage.
Yeah. So what was like for her? It was just you were fixing like her pain point, right? Because you said she didn't need the money.
Right.
You explained like the tax benefits.
Right.
So
yeah, I mean, she wasn't hurting. She had a great job. She was a tenured professor in the engineering department at Binghamton University. So that's where I went to school. And she just really, I don't think she wanted the headache. She just wanted to take care of her family, work her job. She got monthly payments, and eventually, obviously, was paid out the remainder of the balance at sale. So it worked out for her.
nice.
Yeah, it was good.
That's
It was a win-win for sure.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's just, we work on that all the time on like how do we get seller finance and things like that. And one of the focuses, which is awesome to hear you say, is that like you didn't make it about yourself. Clearly, like you're not pitching it to someone that like it's someone who doesn't need the money, right? Is like maybe understands the tax benefits of it. So you found it, you pitched it. So like, I mean, I'm still trying to land my first one, and I do sales full time. So
yeah, I think it's it depends on the environment you're in too, because it's not like she didn't have 20 competing offers. I'm sure if someone came to the table with full asking cash offer, it's just easier. Maybe it wasn't the best thing for her, but it would have been an easier transaction for sure. So I think, especially right now, I mean, we're in Jersey, it's a hot market. You have 10, 15, 20 offers at a time. 9 times out of 10 properties are going over ask. So it's tougher to get people on board with those types of transactions, but it just has to fit for them. And I just think it's another tool to put in your toolbox. It's not always going to work. It's not what you should always do, but it's one offer you could make in, a set of maybe 3 or 4 offers you're bringing to the table.
there it is. That's awesome. So boom. So you get that deal, and you said that was student housing, right?
Yeah, that was.
Got it. How was it like just dealing with knuckleheads?
That house actually wasn't too bad. We had primarily, I believe it was always graduate students. Nothing too crazy in terms of, rowdiness there. I've had other student properties that have been, much, much different, but that one in particular wasn't bad. It was pretty good.
Gotcha. Okay. And you said that was with a partner, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Got it. And then how did that conversation go? Like, I guess initial conversations of like trusting someone else, the first investment property, like how did you choose that person to be the guy to kind of, get in business with?
We had a pretty good relationship, and he did a lot of the legwork too, putting that deal together. Definitely wasn't all me. Smart guy. We worked together in a summer internship in college. She was a few years older than me, but we always had a good relationship. Both hardworking, honest guys. At the time we were hanging out a lot. I just finished school. He was in the area working as a pharmaceutical sales rep, so it was also great, right? Because I was working in Manhattan at the time. He was local. He was able to check in on the properties. He performed the lawn maintenance. We would kind of split the showings. So, every couple months I'd go down for a weekend, do the showings. I typically would take care of the turnover, clean out the apartments at the end of the year, do a repaint, fix a couple things, and then he would, be available for the day-to-day. So on top of just already having a good relationship and knowing, he was a good guy business-wise, is actually how we met, was that internship. So, we knew that we were both hardworking, trustworthy individuals. So it was pretty natural in terms of partnering with him. We ended up buying a couple more out there together as well.
Oh, that's awesome. And it seems like it's pretty cool that you guys seem to have like your strength wasn't his, and then it seems like his strength wasn't yours. How did you guys, is that kind of like what made you guys kind of partner up initially?
I think it's very similar. Ryan, you guys have like you and your brother have the construction experience too, and I really have none. And I guess I like the system side of things. So like the building, I enjoy doing that, and I think that's kind of where it made a lot of sense, especially for fix and flip company. What do you think, Ryan?
No, I agree. Yeah, I think the best way for partners to, I guess, align your values and your goals are the main thing, and then opposite skill sets. So as much as you want to partner with your best friend, sometimes you have too much in common where you both two construction guys going at it. Yeah, let's build a company, and I think that's the recipe for disaster. So I think we had similar goals, similar, the 10-year frame of where we want to go with it. Same core values, and then it's just opposite skill sets where, whether there's construction and, one person's handling the finances and the other one's building out the system side. I think that's like a perfect, combo. So I think that's where he saw alignment, and, I agreed and we ran with it.
So far, so good. So.
Yeah. Like I said, if there's like two people that do the same thing, then you don't really need the other person because it's redundant.
Yeah, it sounds like, once again, right, like
For
what
sure.
You and your partner at the time were kind of doing.
Absolutely.
And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong in partnerships or in business, is because you have two basically, you have the same person, like my friend, or I grew up with this person, or I met this person. It's like, oh, this is my boy, I could hang out and drink with, whatever it is. But when it comes down to business, sometimes it sounds good, but when it get down to the paper, it doesn't work.
That makes a lot of sense. And I'm sure a bunch of people make that mistake. Got you. And then, so Tyler didn't think it was complicated enough or wild enough to do seller finance on his first deal. So he said, let's do a 203K loan.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy, man. It's full circle now because now I'm the contractor on 203K deals. But it sounds great, especially when you're reading about it. It's like, for those of you who don't know what a 203K loan is, it's basically an FHA loan where you're purchasing with between like 3.5%, 5% down. You can wrap the renovation costs into the mortgage, assuming that the after repair value makes sense to the mortgage company to allot that repair budget to you. The contractor I had, he wasn't the best. He was an honest guy, so that goes a long way. I mean, there's a lot of contractors that don't even have that going for them, so that was a big thing. But something that was supposed to take 4 weeks took almost 4 months. By the end of the project, the mortgage company was basically like, hey, you got to finish this week or you're not getting your last draw. It's dragged out too long. When I went to check on the project, one guy from his crew was actually physically asleep in the basement. I had to throw him out. I won't get into details on that, but he was literally there sleeping. I think he just moved in. So it took a little while. That's not what you'll read about in the books, but that's the reality of the situation sometimes is 203s. There's a lot of red tape. There's a lot of inspections, a lot of paperwork, and most contractors, to be honest with you, they're not built for that. So, make sure you're doing your due diligence, interviewing these guys, holding their feet to the fire, and making sure they're actually able to execute on the project.
Yeah.
How did you find that contractor?
I found him. That's a good question. I believe he was recommended to me from someone else who used him in the area. He was doing like 4 projects within a 2-block radius. So I want to say at that point I had already went through a few guys I didn't like. I want to say I found someone who knew he was working in the neighborhood, and then we met after that, had him walk through the project, and we went from there.
Nice. And then how did you find the deal?
That was, I believe it was an MLS deal, if I'm not mistaken. We just sent a lot of offers out. Mike was one of the few realtors that understood and appreciated. You know, we were going to put offers in a lot of times sight unseen just because things were moving so fast. I worked a day job, so by the time Saturday came and I was ready to go to the showing, these properties were under contract. So as soon as I hit the market, we were putting offers in, looking at the numbers, high level, putting offers in, and luckily we were able to get that one.
Nice. Was there any like, or maybe you remember too, like I know in a 203K loan, just because it's a bit more complicated, so people seem to be more reluctant to maybe accept a loan like that.
That one was actually not that bad. The condition wise, like it's already almost finished from what I remember. I think it was missing like a stove and missing like the refrigerator, but it was almost it was fully renovated basically, right?
Yeah, it was in good shape. So the value add we did was primarily in the basement. The basement wasn't finished, and I used a 203K budget to finish the basement, tile the floor, get that ready. But it's funny, it was finished, but one of the local characters came by and stole the boilers, so we had to do 2 new boilers. Yeah, there was 2 boilers there when we did the first walkthrough, and then the final walkthrough that it was gone. So yeah, we had to put two new crowns in. So.
And what was the end game for that deal?
That I lived there for a few years. Basically just collected rent in the meantime. I had a roommate too, so I actually cash flowed on my primary residence for almost 3 years.
Nice.
So that's something, I think that's a good takeaway for the listeners. Like, it might not be something you necessarily want to do, but when you're young, you don't have a family, you're not married yet. To me, it wasn't that big of a sacrifice because I wasn't going to use the extra bedroom anyway. But I had a roommate. The downstairs was rented out, and I was cash flowing about $300 a month in the interim. And for those of you who don't know, your primary residence, it's if you're single, the gain on it is tax-free up to $250,000. So I ended up selling that property, and the market went up so much, I actually realized just about that full amount of untaxable gain. So that was, it was huge. I knew the market would get better, but with the crazy, tear that it's been on lately, it was just, no-brainer to kind of sell it and take some chips off the table.
I didn't even know you sold that. Nice.
Yeah.
You have to wait a little bit.
Perfect timing too. I mean,
Yeah.
when's the next time we didn't get the craziness that we experienced?
Right. You got to take advantage.
Yeah,
Oh, for sure. That's awesome.
That's a great
So
one.
that was a single family with a finished basement.
That was a duplex with a finished basement.
Duplex. Okay.
Or a duplex with a bonus, which is,
Gotcha. Oh, wait, so you had one unit rented, you were living in one, you rented the room, and then you had the basement.
yeah.
Oh.
And to be honest with you, I probably didn't even fully utilize the basement. I just use it as storage for tools and stuff. But, you could easily throw an extra bathroom down there and add that in with the first floor unit and get a significant rent increase. I didn't even do that. So I probably could have, cash flowed even more on that property in hindsight.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's your second deal. Like that's great. Okay, so when you bought the single family, the duplex with the 203K loan, are you still working at Ernst & Young?
Yep.
Okay, so what's happening now? What's happening? So you have that house, and you're like, what's next?
Yeah. So from there, we tried to get another 2-family in Newark in the same area. That deal didn't go too well. I lost some earnest money there. That one kind of fell through our hands. The guy that owned it was a contractor. He turned a single family into a 2-family, but he never rezoned it, never filed any permits. So when I go to buy it and we actually start running title on it, it comes back as a single family. It's worth, 110,000 less. We're way past the due diligence period at this point. And to be honest with you, I messed up. I gave him way too much earnest money, and we ended up settling. I probably lost like $8 or $9 grand on it, which in the grand scheme of things isn't too much. At the time it felt like every penny I had, but in hindsight, it wasn't a big deal, and definitely a good learning experience. But really just stayed on it, man, trying to look for more deals. And then eventually started, my own construction company as well on the side, which was tough working the full-time job as well.
What would you have done differently on that deal, you think, for anyone that's listening?
Way less earnest money. I put up 25 grand in earnest money.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Was that on our market, that deal?
Off market.
Off market?
And I mean, it was a good deal. It was 190,000 for, it was a 2-family in Newark. It was a 3-bed, 2-bath in each unit, fully rented. I mean, that same property right now is probably in the 400s, if I had to guess. And that was, 3.5 years ago. Granted, we've had a crazy, appreciation in the market recently, but the main thing is I definitely would not have done that much earnest money, maybe $5,000 max, but nowhere near what I put down. I was just too eager to get to the next deal.
That makes sense. These are learning curves.
Yeah, I think also when we're looking at 2 families, we want to make sure that they are legitimately 2 families, right? Like doing that, probably pulling an Oprah or talking to the town,
Yeah, for sure.
just to find out if it is legitimately a 2-family in written form.
Yeah.
Maybe have that written in the contract.
And Oprah?
Oprah. What is it? Freedom of Information Act?
Yeah, it's an open permit
Open permit.
request act
Yeah.
application.
Yep. So basically, all this information is public record. So you can just go to the township and request to see what use this property is kind of designated for. You can just make sure, right? Because people can, the sellers can say it's a 2-family, but legitimately, it could just be a single family,
Right.
Or it could be the other way around. Maybe it's a 3-family,
Right.
and then you can just kind of
I
change
guess
it.
the main thing is if you put that in the contract, buyer says it's seller says it's 2-family. You
Yeah.
can put that little contingency
Yeah.
inside that due diligence period, and you might be able to catch it with an Oprah or with some
Yeah.
type of title. But once you pass due diligence, that's where maybe it comes down
Gets
to
a
he said,
little-
she said type
Right.
of thing. And
Or even say something like, it has to be a 2-family. Like that, I would think wouldn't even be part of like the due diligence, because if it's not what you said it was, then it's a completely different property.
yeah, that's correct. So you could go right back to the contract and put it and be like, it's not what you said, and I don't think they have the rights to hold
Yeah.
the earnest against you because it's not agreed upon.
Right.
Yeah, like we agreed to this,
Yep.
not this. Hence,
Yeah.
got you. Makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. And then you mentioned after you're still working the full-time job, but then you start a construction company.
Correct.
What? I'm super surprised. Why? Because I feel like most of the time it's like you start construction company,
Yeah.
and and then you're working for investors, and the story is like I could just do that myself, but you went the other way.
So for me, it was about controlling as many pieces of the transaction that I could. And after having that bad experience with one of the crew members thinking he could live in my house during the renovation, I was just thinking of ways to basically take control of that situation. And I've always been around construction too. Like growing up, I'd spend, a summer doing sheetrock for a family friend. I had an uncle that was a professional painter, a couple cousins that owned their own construction company. So, weekends here and there, I'd help them with jobs, whether it was, demo, sheetrocking, painting. So I've always been around it, and it was just, actually did a little bit of it in college as well, just, on the side, just to make some extra money in the summers. But it just made sense, man, to control more of the transaction. And also it just opens up more avenues in real estate, right? Like now it's kind of come full circle because, I'm working with you guys, looking at 3 or 4 of your projects, working as a GC, being able to manage that construction portion for you. And it's opening up more doors, hopefully, obviously it's another stream of income, but, hopefully down the road it can lead to, okay, I take care of the construction, this is the scope, but rather than being paid out as a contractor, you become a partner in the deal. Now you have aligned interests, you have somebody that you can rely on and trust to get the project done, and you don't have all these horror stories. So now I'm able to be more valuable to the folks that I partner with and also my deals. The big variable of how are we going to get this construction done and do we have to deal with bozos on the job, that's gone because it's my company. So it's a lot more peace of mind, and I have really solid subs that I've built good relationships with that can take care of things that we're not qualified to do, like plumbing, electrical, HVAC, major foundation work, and things like that.
Yeah, it's funny. Every person that we've spoken to, Dowen, Prince, Tyler, even you guys, like it seems to be a consistent thing, right? Like we want as much control as possible, right? To make sure we control like from A to B, right? You talk about that all the time, right? Like from our marketing to our acquisitions to dispo to transactions. Like it hits our system the whole way through. So it's just crazy. Like Prince literally talked about that the whole time. Darwin said the same thing. So just makes sense. Like, and then you're answering a lot of people's concerns, like you said, with like contracting. You know, what's funny? Darwin was here, and Prince was here, and we did like a 30-minute segment naturally on like working with contractors. And I know you have clearly a shit ton of like information that you can give us. So like, what's been your experience, your general experience, whatever you want to dig in on both sides?
Yeah, I mean, look, it takes a certain type of person to be a contractor. It's not a pretty job. It's, you know, a lot of times there's a lot of hard work, a lot of heavy lifting. There's not a lot of glamour in it. So unfortunately, that attracts a certain type of person most of the time, right? Myself, as well as my crew, you know, we have kind of a gritty, like blue collar background. I myself, I was a Division I athlete. My foreman, he played junior A hockey, you know, junior Olympics. We have a certain level of I would say mental toughness and, you know, just the ability to get the job done, that it goes a long way in general construction. Whereas unfortunately, a lot of times you get, you know, rough around the edges guys. Maybe they have a drinking problem, a drug problem. They're on their last dollar on every job. So they're asking you for more money because they don't have gas. They can't buy materials. But at the end of the day, whose fault is that really? It's not the investor's fault that they didn't manage their draws correctly. But for me, right, working with investors, it's tough because I see where the issues come up with GCs. But at the same time, I think investors could be doing a better job to avoid those issues. And with that, really, I think you just got to be really clear with your scope. You have to have everything laid out, which we try really hard to make sure we have everything A to Z, you know, in terms of what we're doing, what that's going to cost the investor, you know, rough timing on when we think we can get it done. That way you can hold us accountable on getting our stuff done, and we can hold the investor accountable for, okay, we're 50%, another draw is due. Sometimes you get to the end of the project, they're like, hey, you know, don't forget about, you know, taking care of the steps. Don't forget about tiling the bathroom walls. And you point back to that agreement. Now it's not an argument between two people. It's, hey, this is the contract we have. That's out of scope. We can do it. Here's the price and here's the timing. That's not a part of this. So we need to take care of what's on this sheet, get this done, get this paid for. Anything extra, that's a change order. You know, just being open with that communication. A lot of contractors are not even putting things on paper. They're just giving you a price and saying, yeah, we'll take care of the house. That's, you know, a black hole of issues if you go into a relationship with a contractor like that. And that's as much on the investor, in my opinion, as it is on the contractor, because you guys don't have the same expectations. You know, you're expecting him to do A to Z. He's probably thinking he's just doing, you know, whatever he's got to do to get that thing on the market. And when other problems pop up, in his mind, they're not his issue, and in your mind, they are. You're going to naturally butt heads there. So a clear scope, I think, that's number one, and really clear payment terms, that's, you know, to me, number two. You don't want to pay too much up front. If anything, a lot of times, and I understand that, we typically, even on larger projects, we'll take at least a 25% draw up front. There is some hesitation with folks at times, but, you know, our track record speaks for itself. We have solid reviews. We have solid references, you know, across the board. Google, House, which is like a Angie's List type service. So, you know, I think really for the investor, you just have to be super clear. If they're not giving you a contract, make your own, have the GC sign it, that has the scope laid out. Also the sequencing, right? Because you want to make sure you know what's getting done, when it's getting done. And for me, another important thing is just being able to manage the project. So put it on your GC to manage all the subs. We've had issues where, you know, we're responsible for a certain scope, but the investor's bringing in a different plumber, a different electrician. Now they're coming there. We're responsible for the demolition and the waste removal, but now you have plumbers and electricians creating additional waste, throwing it on the job. Whose responsibility is that? To me, that's not my responsibility. But the investor brought these other guys in. I can't hold them accountable to take care of their own trash. That's an issue I'm having right now on one job. You know, I've had to go back a couple of different times, which, to be honest, is kind of, you know, out of the goodness of my own heart. I really don't need to be doing that, but to clean up the property, make sure we're not getting fined or citations from the city. So I would suggest, allowing your GC to work with their own subs, because that gives them full accountability for what goes on in and around the property during the entirety of the project. That's been an issue on a couple job sites, and I'm trying to get away from that right now. So if I had a few points of advice to investors, that would definitely be it. Just be clear on your scope, your sequencing, your payment schedule, and allow your GC to take full control of the project. And if you don't trust them to do that, you probably shouldn't be working with them in the first place.
Yeah. That's what it sounds like. And it sounds like it's super important to set these expectations up front. Like,
absolutely.
I feel like, and I'm sure you mess with property management as well. And I feel like I've gotten to the point with tenants that, like, you kind of take all your experiences and you kind of I set the expectation. Jagger was with me the other day, and I was like, listen, there's for sure, I don't care how good the person who renovated this house is, there's going to be an outlet that's not going to work. And I'm like, and that's okay. There's going to be maybe a window that doesn't open. Like, we're going to fix this, and that's okay, right? You start setting the expectation as clear cut as possible. So if they want to get in, like, if they want to marry you, now they know exactly what they're getting. And it sounds like, right, same thing. You want to make sure all the dirty, everything's out. Now we can kind of have like a real conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But the problem is, like, a lot of newer investors don't even know what type of expectations to set, right? Mm-hmm. They don't know, like, how they talk to a GC, and they just want to get the project started, right? They're not putting things on paper, not black and white, no payment structure, like no timeline. And, that's how you get screwed over by GCs. Like, the GCs are looking out for their own best interest, which is to get the job, right? They just want to, they'll yes you to death, right? Especially the ones that aren't that organized. Obviously, you have a professional operation, where other people that don't, they just want to get the job and get into the house, take that first down payment, right? Get that started. And then, most of the time people fail because they didn't set that right expectation from the get.
Yeah. No, it just seems like across the board, right? Like when Vin is dealing with on the sales side, right? It's like, hey, this is as is.
As is. Don't come after us.
This is exactly what you're going to get. Are you sure, right? And it just seems like it's just a constant, right? The setting expectations, making sure everyone's on the same page, right? Like, it's just funny how these things just continue to pop up with all the people we're talking to. And it seems like you're the same way, right? Like, with the new thing, like, I get that for sure. I guess the only thing is looking for someone who, like, that you can tell that to, like Tyler's saying. If you don't trust the GC to even say that, like, look, I'm new, I need you to help me, right? Like, I'm assuming you would appreciate that way more than the guy that's overcompensating with, like, douchiness, right? Other than because he's scared, instead of saying, like, hey, Tyler, like, I've never done this, like, this is what it is. And if the guy takes advantage of you, then, like you said, that's probably not the guy you should have worked with anyway, right?
Right. Yeah, I think too, if you're going into a major renovation and it's your first rodeo, or maybe you have a couple properties but those return key and this is your first major value add, get a partner, man. Find a partner, find another investor that's done those things, or find an investor / contractor. There's other guys like me out there that are willing to do the construction for you for a piece of the deal, and you can learn along the way. I wouldn't suggest putting your trust in the GC's hand unless you have some pre-existing relationship, because they're going to tell you what you want to hear, to Mike's point, and they're, at the end of the day, they're just trying to get the job done, get paid, move on. You're not getting any extra money for staying there an extra week to make sure everything is, in tip-top shape.
Got you. And you mentioned, have you ever done that before? Like, maybe work with an investor, get a piece of the deal, and then, now you have someone who's, like, incentivized basically to do a good job. Like, what does that look like? I don't know if you've ever done that before.
Correct. So right now we're just starting to get into that. We have a couple years of full-scale renovations under our belt now. We're actually, Ryan and I have been throwing back and forth some ideas on that for a couple properties you guys are working on for some major value adds. Whether we end up just partnering on it and I do the GC work and become an equity partner that way, or if I just, might end up buying one of them outright from you guys. But there's a lot of different ways you can do it, right? Like, you have a construction budget, you can turn that into equity in the deal. And I think rightfully so, right? Let's say you have a $500,000 project and you're doing, you know, 100,000 in renovations, purchase price is 400 grand. I think you should want, you know, at that point, the renovations 20% of the budget. You should probably be looking for a little bit more than that in terms of equity, because now you have some risk involved, right? There's some opportunity costs as well, where, you know, you're spending this time on this project, you could be out somewhere else making money elsewhere. You really just have to find good folks that you want to partner with. We've been a little bit selective. The opportunity's been on the table, but they haven't been folks that I've been totally comfortable with, in terms of, you know, partnering or marrying them, so to speak, like you said, Ronnie. But that's definitely something we're going to be getting into in the near future.
Yeah, and I think like this year, right? It's kind of been inevitable for us, like, right, growth, scaling, right? I know you've mentioned it a couple of times, like of course we would love to keep everything, right? But it just gets to a point where you kind of have to, like, right, like you built these relationships as we've gotten, you know, older and older, like as a business, and then what happens, right? Then you're like, all right, do we keep everything and stay growing like this, or do we grow like this, but, like, you know, get some friends along? Like, how do you feel about that now?
No, I agree. I think eventually you hit a wall or a ceiling, and I mean, you could only go so far with your own money or your own team, and then eventually you start going to partnerships, other companies, and you pull together your expertise, and that's how you, I guess, break that ceiling. So I think that's where we're at now. So giving up equity across 10 projects rather than doing 3 on our own, in the long run, it makes sense. And then you're bringing in other professionals to handle the side maybe you're weaker at, or the side that you don't want to do. And instead of building it out, you kind of pool your, you know, resources and expertise together. And I think it's an awesome, you know, I think that's where we're going. I think it's an awesome, you know, trajectory.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it also unlocks us to, like, a geographic location too, right? Like, we can only be in a certain place, like New Jersey, right? If we're doing a deal in PA, or if we want to go to Utah or anywhere else, like, partnering is one of the easiest way to kind of get into, you know, a different market, or just kind of having more people that you want to partner with and work with that you can trust, especially in places that we're not going to be able to get to easily. So I think that's another component. Just really unlocks us to doing more in anywhere, basically.
Yeah, no, for sure.
I agree, and I think another I guess important thing is I guess what's my train of thought here? Handling your own, like staying in your own lane, and then how big you want to get, and let me get back to you.
Got you.
But
Yeah, because we're sales and marketing, right? We're a machine that generates deals, right? And
Yeah.
Absolutely.
and we can generate deals in any state, basically, because it doesn't really limit you.
And nothing changes.
yeah, I got it.
Go
It's
there it is.
It goes back to goal alignment.
Gotcha.
So, you know, if everyone's on the same goal of, you know, getting the project done on time, on budget, you know, whether it's a contractor or any type of person, lender, if you bring in equity, now everyone is on the same page. There is no me versus the contractor, me versus the lender. Like, this is like when you go debt investing with a lender, not that you're not partnering, but you're kind of on different pages. Like, you just owe them X, and it doesn't really matter what the project does. Contractor, you sign a $100K contract, you owe them X. If they get to the last minute and they get paid, like, they're out. Like, but if they're in that deal on equity and it's a 5-year hold or it's a 10-year Airbnb, now they have no incentive to leave, because it's they're part of the deal. So why would they back out? Why would they cut corners? So I think that's the main thing of goal alignment when you grow. And that's what, I know a lot of people knock partnerships. You know, you can hear all different horror stories. Oh, this partner went south, this blah, blah, blah. But I think in the long term, if you find the right partners, you could go to a whole nother level.
Yeah.
That's it.
100%. Absolutely.
So yeah, that was my train of thought loss.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, that's one of the big attractive things that made me want to partner with you guys, is what Mike said. You guys are deal machines. You have your systems built so well. You know, it wasn't that long ago that you came up with the idea of getting some Airbnbs in the Poconos. You know, you have a couple legitimate opportunities under contract in just a few months because you took that system you already built and you applied it to a new market. You guys built it in Jersey. You know, now Mike's doing it in Florida. And that's something that I don't have. You know, I understand the deals. I'm very good when it comes to creative financing. And, you know, obviously I have the general construction going on as well. So there's different things I can bring to the table. But in terms of consistently finding these really good, you know, cash flowing deals or deals with a lot of, you know, equity potential post value add, I don't have that, which makes it, you know, a good partnership opportunity where, you know, if you guys are running into some contractor issues, we can step up and be that trustworthy partner to get things to the finish line and get things, you know, moving more efficiently for you. So it just makes sense. And that goes back to your earlier point, right? Like if I was a deal machine and Mike was a deal machine and we're partnering together, but we have no ability to execute and we're hiring bums off the street to do construction and our houses are falling apart. Doesn't matter if we can find every deal.
Finding hundreds of deals at that.
Right.
This side of the table, we have no interest in the construction end of it.
No,
whatsoever.
not at all. I'm learning like reluctantly about construction, you know, just because of property management, I'm just naturally in it more and I understand it more. But yeah, that was the funny part when I was like, I guess in the beginning when I met these guys. And like, well, Mike especially was like just planting seeds in my head that I didn't know were there. You know, he's like, "How do you like your job?" I was like, "I don't like it." He's like,
Me?
"Oh,
It wasn't
really?
me.
It was you." He was just quiet. I remember it was you, just like planting seeds in my head. But funny thing is, back to what you guys were saying, like, but no, what you said. Naturally, I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna get along with these guys because I talk so much.
Still don't get along.
And like, I'm like, and these guys, I'm like. Michael's more like philosophy and takes his time. This is me, like my frame of thought initially. Like me and Ryan, cool, but we just talk shit. Like we just whatever. I'm like, he's quiet. I talk a lot, and then I'm like, Michael thinks, and I am fucking figuring it out as I'm spitting it out. Like, you know, I'm just throwing it out to see what sticks. And it goes once again, it goes back to that what we're talking about. Like your strength is not my strength, right? Like that's how we grow, right? Like my strength is communications with people. Not businesses, B2C. Like I'll talk, I can empathize with anyone B2C.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead. I'm sorry.
Everyone has their own superpower, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right? You gotta let that shine, right? And kind of, like you said, stay in your lane and just kind of do what you do best and just kind of stick with that. And I think that's how you get a good partnership, good team.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it's definitely showing, like in all of us and what we've done, which is like the coolest part. And I don't think when we were talking about like Ryan, especially, just so you guys know, he was doubting this podcast, but his biggest doubts was like, what are we going to do? What are we going to talk about? And I was like, I don't think we have to overthink it because naturally the people that we're around are people like-minded that have something to share. So like, we don't have to give, like even you kind of mentioned, I was like, I don't think we have to really give it a name. It's just we're naturally like we had a full-on podcast outside, you know, like just throwing gems without us realizing it. You know, I'm sure people get a lot of value from this.
That's because I'm a hater, though.
Yeah, Mr. Pessimistic here. But yeah, Tyler, I'm sorry to go back to you. What else are you working on now? What's going on right now?
Right now, man, it's a lot of construction, and I currently have a few student rental properties in PA on the market. Got some offers coming in on those. So really trying to offload. Right now, I mean, obviously, as everyone knows, we're at an extreme high point in the market. Interest rates are starting to go up. It's a little bit uncertain now if we're going to maintain this crazy level of appreciation that we've had over the last couple of years due to, you know, supply shortage. But I'm really just looking to take some chips off the table over there. And operationally for me, it makes sense, right? Because I only have 3 properties in PA. I'm doing so much here in Jersey. You know, I still own property here in Jersey. I'm starting to work on, you know, larger scale projects with you guys. We have some ADA levels coming, you know, major renovation projects. I want to be able to put 110% of my focus on what I'm doing here. And, you know, if I can cash out in PA at a, you know, solid value, make some good return on investment, I'm going to do that. So right now it's really, you know, just pouring gasoline on the fire for the construction company that I'm building. Right now it's myself and 6 guys. We're growing quite a bit. And, you know, really I'm just trying to push us to that next level. Right now we're trending to do just under a few $1 million in sales, and we've only been around for a couple of years, you know, full time. So I'm just trying to ride that momentum and, you know, become one of the top guys around for investors to work with or partner with. And we also do some projects on the retail side as well. So being able to deliver those high-end, retail kitchens, baths. We do a lot of landscape construction as well. So, higher-end outdoor kitchens, patios, retaining walls, things like that. So I've really been focusing, I'd say 80% of my effort on that, and then just managing the existing portfolio and trying to get through a couple sales here in the next couple months.
Nice. We never spoke about, you left your full-time job.
Correct.
We never spoke about that.
My full-time job left me. I'll correct you. Yeah.
What happened?
To be honest with you, man, at the time it was pretty hard to take. It felt like a failure in a sense, but anyone that knows the hedge fund world, right? Like you could be riding, a high for so long, but as soon as things hit the fan, it's not good. So for me in particular, I was hired because they were expecting a certain amount of growth. So I worked at structured credit funds. We had about $10 billion under management, and it was, I want to say, around 30 or 40 folks working for this fund, about 30, smaller fund. And that year, we had a couple investments that went badly. We had a couple large investors pull significant money out of the fund, and the business is managing money, right? So if you're managing less money, you need less personnel. And as the younger guy / the person that was hired because they were expecting growth, my job got cut. A couple other folks got cut too. I kind of saw the writing on the wall a couple months before. And when I saw one of the senior traders take a suitcase and do one of these out the door, and my meeting was next, I started packing my stuff, man. I knew what time it was, that's for sure. But to be honest with you, it was one of the best things that could have happened to me, because at the time I was running a very small operation compared to what we're building now, because there was just only so much I could do on the weekends. And I had 2 guys working for me full time, but there's only so much 2 guys are getting done during the week when I'm not there, and there's only so fast we can build when at the end of the day I have a pretty demanding job. We're working 60 hours a week at a major financial operation in the city. Most folks have a hard enough time dealing with that. So, working 7 days a week for pretty much a year straight, that just wasn't feasible long term, and ultimately it was a great thing.
Nice. And then so like mentally, like was it, oh shit, I got fired? Great, I'm gonna ramp this up.
Yeah.
Or was there a sense of hesitancy, like, damn, should I get up 9 to 5? Because like we grew up like you have, you gotta get that 9 to 5, like you gotta get the pension, all that, whatever that they sell us. Like, was there ever that, or it was just like, okay?
It's funny you mentioned that. I had maybe, and it was an interesting time too, right? Like I got fired right before the shutdown happened. So it was very beginning of 2020. I remember I went home for a couple of weeks just to kind of relax and think. And I had a family member recovering from an illness, so I wanted to see her. And right when I went there, boom, it hit. Everything got locked down, shut down. I'm like, oh crap, the employment prospects aren't looking too good right now. But what's great, and it goes back to our earlier point, right? I had that house hack. I was cash flowing off my primary residence. I didn't build this lavish lifestyle up like, oh, I'm a hedge fund guy. I wasn't out having, a pissing match with my coworkers that were renting $3,000-$4,000 a month apartments in downtown New York City. I was living in Newark, man. Like, nobody believed me when I said that for the most part. Like, you work at a hedge fund, but you live in Newark? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And I also pay nothing for rent. I own my property, and I'm getting paid to live there. So, yeah, that's where I live. But that gave me the freedom to really think, okay, should I go all in on this construction and real estate, or do I need to hop back in and do another W-2? So I had a couple headhunters reach out and, throw a couple positions my way that would have been good fits based on, my prior experience. And I thought about it a bit, but ultimately I just said, no, I'm going to put the chips on the table, bet on myself. That's kind of what I've done naturally all along anyway. Like my background, the entire way I got to college was, I always had good grades, but it was wrestling for me, which is an individual sport. It's really just you against the other guy, and you have to bet on yourself. You have to be confident in your ability to execute. And to be frank, I wasn't totally happy in those jobs. To me, it was just kind of, you're punching the clock, you're doing what you got to do, and you're going home. That's never been the kind of person that I am. Not with sports, not with business, not with academics, nothing. So it just didn't fit me naturally. And I decided to take a bet on myself, and it's, you got to put the ego aside a little bit. The first year or so I was on site working with the guys every day, and to go from wearing a suit to work, sitting at a desk, getting free tickets, box seats to basketball games, fifth or sixth row with the Yankees, to coming home covered in dirt for a year straight. That's sometimes it could be a tough pill to swallow for some folks, but to me it was building toward the end game, buying more properties, which I bought a few more since then, building that business, and I'm glad I did it. Making 3-4 times as much as I was at that job, and I'm a lot happier doing it. It doesn't feel like work at all.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. And you sound way more passionate. Like, even just talking about it now, you just sound lighter. Like, do this all day. Like, Yeah, no, there's nothing to that. You spoke about that too, right? With me and Jagger, about like, it's more about what makes you happy, right?
100%.
You mentioned that a couple of times.
Yeah, that dirt you're tasting, that's freedom. It's freedom. The box you're in, you're in a box.
Yeah.
It's like
cell, man. It's like prison.
It's a prison, right? At the end of the day, you don't have the freedom to do what you want. Like your coworkers, they got fired. They live in luxury lifestyle. At the end of the day, they're stuck. They're stuck in that same lifestyle, or they have to get another job. On the other hand, you have the option to do what you want. You can get another job or not, right? You can do what you're good at, what you want to do, or not, right? These people, they don't have an option. And at the end of the day, if you're okay, like taking that, swallowing that humble pill for a little bit.
Absolutely.
That, you're fine. You'll be happier that way.
I agree.
Yeah.
What you want is on that other side of fear. It's a cliche quote, but it's true. It's easy to punch the clock. It's easy to do what someone else is asking you to do. Climb that corporate ladder, get your 5 to 10% raise every year. It looks great on paper what you're doing, but is that ultimately what you want to do? And are you maximizing your skill set? That's what I always talk to my friends about. Like, I have a lot of friends that are still in those corporate roles, most of them, working their way up, but for the most part, they're not happy. And whenever I talk to them, I'm like, think about what you are uniquely good at. What have you always done in your life? What are a few key characteristics that you have, and how can you monetize those outside of your corporate 9 to 5, or in those roles, man, it's like 8 to 8, really. It's not even a 9 to 5. How can you monetize what you're good at? And in the internet age, there's so many things you can do. You can be, an independent consultant. You can start a business. You can just get really, really good at investing. There's a ton of things you can do, but you have to think outside the box, and you have to challenge yourself to make that step. Taste that dirt, like Mike said.
Yeah, especially like if your personality is to go above and beyond, right? What's better than to do it for your own business, right? You have no limit, basically, because it's all up to you and what you can do. And when you're working a job, you're doing it for somebody else. And at the end of the day, you're going to be limited to what you want to do, because it's not for yourself.
For sure. I couldn't even bring myself to do it. It's like, why am I working? I'm already working 10 hours with this guy. How can I work 12, 14? I do it for myself all day. I'm out of the house 6:30, 7 o'clock, get back 7, 8, 9 at night. Doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
But doing it for someone else to maybe get an extra 1 or 2% raise, or $2 or $3 grand on your bonus, it's not going to move me.
Yeah. You're betting on yourself when you're doing that.
Right.
Yeah. And I guess to dig deeper into that, I don't think it's for everyone. So I think I love what you did, and I mean, we live it, but I don't think it is for everyone. And I think that's the main thing to take away from that is so many people who are like, oh, I want to do it. They say they want to do it, but the instant gratification sets in, and I just think a lot of people aren't set out for it, or they think they are and they aren't. That years in Newark, years eating dirt.
Can't get punched in the face.
Yeah. You need to know what you're signing up for, and I think a lot of, I don't know, I guess what you read or what you see is a lot of fluff of, oh, it's so easy, go in, and it's not. Especially at the beginning, you have to know what you're getting into, sacrifice those years, sometimes 2 years, 5 years, like, to actually get there. And, you grind through it, then it's worth it. But I think a lot of people go in thinking it's an easy route of like, oh, I'll just go work for myself. And I think people are misled where, it's so fulfilling, but you have to almost know what you're signing up for and get there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's definitely not a road that everyone should take. And I think you need to really look yourself in the mirror if you are going down that road.
Yeah, and going back to like setting expectation, it's not an overnight success. Like none of this stuff that you see is overnight, right? It took years of grinding that no one saw, right? The work that we put in, no one knows that. They only see the aftermath of it.
Right.
So, like you said, it's not for everybody. You got to be able to take punches in the face for a year or 2 years, right? For as long as you need to get it done.
Say for as long as it takes. Yeah,
As long as it takes.
You might be fortunate enough that it only takes that many years, right?
Yeah.
What's Gary Vee say? You have to eat shit.
Eat shit. Yeah, he's all about the longer game. It's like jab, 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 then the hook.
Right.
Eat shit.
Right.
He's trying to buy the Jets in 40 years, right?
Right.
Because he wants the journey more than the actual like where you get there. That's what goes back. Going back to what you say. Sorry, I had to.
Cut off the hand.
Yeah, but
that's important, man. You have to love the journey. You have to enjoy it. And if you're not enjoying it, that's probably a sign that you're doing the wrong thing. If you are enjoying it, if you are enjoying that job, like Ryan said, it's probably good for you, you know, or maybe you need to switch a role, but that's what you like to do is work through that corporate structure. Maybe you're really good at your job. You bring a lot of value to, you know, your subordinates, your superiors, whatever it may be. That's great. But if you're not enjoying that journey, you have to take that long look at yourself in the mirror and figure out what you're doing wrong.
Well said.
Yeah, well said, man. Yeah, I think on that note, man, I think we should wrap it up.
Maybe. What's next? Do we go into what's next?
Yeah.
What's next?
What's next for you?
Did we jump on that?
I think we touched on it.
Touched on it.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, man, I'm still trying to build that construction company. I have a business partner, a family member of mine actually who's working out in Florida with you guys now, working on a few projects for you. So really just trying to grow, you know, trying to build that out, get his crew situated down there, make sure we can be a true asset for you guys in your value add down there and you know, continuing to execute up here, buy more properties. And for me, I want to start to get away from the smaller, you know, single families, 2, 3, 4 families, start doing some 6 units, some 12 units, but just for scalability purposes, you know, like you guys were saying, now you have one roof and 12 units instead of 12 roofs and 12 units. You know, you have all your tenants in one place. For me, I want to build to that point and just start doing some larger deals and eventually build toward, you know, what is the pinnacle for a lot of folks in this game is syndication. You know, that's the end game. I think that's the end game for some folks at this table as well, and I think we'll get there. It's just, you know, continuing to build, continuing to take those steps, and, you know, focusing on what we're uniquely good at and trying to bring that to other folks that are viable partners.
Yeah. On the syndication route, where do you see yourself going? More on the construction side, on the buy? How do you see that playing out?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, what I really enjoy, I love the construction piece, but I love the raising capital piece as well. I've done it at a small scale. You know, I've had about 5 private investors that I've worked with on smaller deals. I just want to continue to build that up, you know, get into, and really it depends, right? Because I'm not going to be in syndication tomorrow, not even next year. So I have to see what makes sense. For me right now, looking down the road, I think there's going to be a lot of redevelopment opportunities. Retail is dying. Office is dying in a lot of markets. Look at the work from home evolution right now that the pandemic pushed forward. So these B and C market office buildings, they're done. They might still be hanging on by a thread right now, but you can see the proof's in the pudding. You're getting 40, 50, maybe 60% LTVs on retail spaces. Why is that? Why can you only get that, but on multifamily you can still get 80, 85% LTV? It's because these are dying investments. And having this construction background and being able to raise the capital, I want to put myself in a position to be able to redevelop these spaces, repurpose these spaces, you know, in a changing environment. So that's long-term macro perspective. Definitely not there now, but, you know, that's the 5 to 10 year vision for sure.
Nice.
What about you guys? What's next? More ADA levels, more states?
We spoke about it a little bit earlier this week. I guess for the more immediate future, right? We're thinking like more Airbnbs to kind of, I guess, seems like more and more. It's more to like fuel our like more like our destinations and also like run a smooth business. So doing more of what we like and get to enjoy the process, right? Like we might have the PA one. Like it's cool. Like not only is it probably gonna bring good cash flow, but we also get to enjoy it.
Yeah.
You know, the seaside house. Like I was able to spend Christmas there with my family, which is awesome. Like, and it also so happens to cash flow really well. Like you know, so it seems like
Labor Day's still open.
Huh?
Labor Day weekend's still open.
Oh, it is? No, but we can't take that.
I better get an invite to one of these
Freedom
Freedom
sure.
Airbnb retreats.
Yeah.
I'm going on the
actually-
record. I haven't got one yet.
Yeah, that's true. We actually talked about like a few days ago, bringing all this stuff there and doing it there.
Like every
like a
every
week-
day getting
weekend
somebody in.
podcast.
like a
something.
week, like a week.
That'd be nice.
Like
That'd be
set-
sweet, yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
But yeah, I think that's where we're going. The Airbnb is definitely something that interests us.
Mm-hmm.
We may have 4 now, so possibly 5. We'll see. But I guess one of our, you could say, problems is cash flow. So we're heavy on flipping, which is a lot of times big chunks of profit, but
Right.
you have to wait months, sometimes years if you're
Right.
building. So that's one negative. The money's there, but it's all tied up. And then on the burrs, the 2 families, a lot of them we kept. You don't see those profits for, sometimes 5 years. So you get
Absolutely.
slow cash flow, which is great, but by the time those appreciate in value, it might be 5 years down the road. So I think that's one of the negatives in flipping a lot and keeping a lot is it's a slow cash flow. The Airbnbs kind of offset that and the syndications and the bigger deals. So if we could add some Airbnbs and cash flow deals, I think we'll be pretty balanced across everywhere. And once you set those up, obviously go larger,
Absolutely.
10 unit, 20 unit and beyond.
Yeah. And the Airbnb, the short-term stuff, is really the only real thing that we're doing. I think I told you.
Yeah,
talked
it's,
about
like,
it.
it's a real thing. Yeah.
Like flipping is not really real.
Oh boy,
It's-
it's getting deep.
Oh
It's,
yeah.
It's not real.
My cup's
It's
too
like
empty for this.
it's
You refill?
it's numbers, right? Rentals are numbers, right? So I feel like Airbnb is just really something that we can use.
Absolutely.
And I think at this point in our business, we're hopefully build stuff that we can actually enjoy and use. Like we're traveling now, we're going to different places, like to explore different places that we'd want to go to, right?
Yeah.
Just to see like why are we buying real estate? We want to be able to use it too. So kind of get the best of both worlds.
Right.
I think Airbnb and short term is probably the way to go for that.
That makes sense. Especially, it's so popular now, and it's just such a great way to turn a really solid profit. Like if you look at what those properties would do as traditional rentals versus Airbnbs, the difference is staggering. Obviously, there's more involvement,
More
You have-
managerial.
Absolutely, you have
Right,
to
it's a different
turn over the apartments, every time somebody leaves.
Right.
But the cash flow is insane, especially here in Jersey. Like we're really ultimately doing it for the value added, the appreciation that we're getting out of it, the
Right.
ability to refi a large amount of money out of the property or realize a huge gain on sale when we're flipping. It's really tough to get solid cash flowing numbers right now, even in the C&D markets out here. So you really have to look to Airbnbs and alternative methods if cash flow is the goal.
Mm-hmm. And the thing is, like, we're buying them not just from like a retail price point either. We're buying them with equity. So we're using the flip model for Airbnbs, which give us, more exit strategies. At the end of the day, like if we don't want to do it or things change with rules, we can still look to kind of change it into a long-term rental if we want to, or flip it and sell it. The equity's there, so I think we're doing it in a pretty strategic, smart way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least to start, right? Like it makes sense to kind of go that route. And that's like one of the strengths, right? Like we're value add. So
Yeah.
it seems like, I guess from what I see in bigger pockets, a lot of people are more like retail, like I guess like the easier
Turnkey
gateway
stuff, right?
It's turnkey Airbnbs that most people do, which is fine. It seems like it's working, but I guess our unfair advantage is that we flip,
Yeah.
right? So now we have like this forced equity
Mm-hmm.
that allows us for like a bunch of different exit strategies. Like the one we looked at in PA, right? We kind of looked at it a bunch of ways.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that, right? It's that component that we have.
Yeah, I don't think we really buy anything that only has one exit strategy. Probably never.
Let me see. Let me see if that statement is true.
Yeah. Because there's always equity for sure. We're not buying
check.
it with no
The
equity. So
four
we're gonna always
family
flip
was
it.
technically.
I think there's equity in there too.
Well, no, there was. I don't,
Fulton, yeah, we bought that undervalued, so no.
I know. I'm trying to.
Soapstone, Tampa.
I'm sure it went up in value too, just from the buy.
But that
to
was
now.
probably the least,
No, I'm just trying to think.
Least
Yeah,
equity.
I would think, probably
Yeah.
our tightest deal to date.
Yeah.
But there's a good reason for that.
Yeah, but we bought it with the Airbnb
Yeah.
perspective, the second unit on
Moving
site.
moving down to
Moving
Florida.
our personal residence company there.
Yeah.
For tax benefit, all
Yep.
that.
So then, yeah.
So
Awesome
it's
property too. That's going to be a big pull for Airbnb for sure.
So I think,
And it also has a big pool.
but if we were just like tomorrow, if we were to sell that thing, I think we wouldn't. It wouldn't be a good deal. So that's probably the only, I guess, strategic one outside our strategy, typical strategy. But
Oh, we got in there knowing that was the what we're
plan.
doing with it, right? We're not buying it like that's not the main strategy, just like a one-off, if you will.
Yeah.
For sure. I think that's an important point. You never want to get stuck in like a flip or die type model.
Yeah.
Because if the market turns, especially right now, right, like you're having, 50 basis point rate heights a quarter potentially, the market could turn anytime. If buyers back out because their buying power goes down and, that starts to settle the supply and demand differential that there is that created this seller's market, and you're in that flip or die model, maybe your construction takes a few months longer, you could be left holding the bag. My mentor, my real estate mentor, shout out to Abe.
Wait, I'm sorry. Is he the guy that lives in Arizona?
Yes. Yep.
That guy's cool from what you tell me.
He's amazing, man. He was a chemistry teacher for 5 years at the University of Arizona in Tucson. And he built his real estate portfolio up. The guy, he's developed, I think, 3 or 4 self-storage facilities in the last few years. Hopefully he doesn't mind me sharing, but I want to say his net per deal is a couple $1,000,000. And he had so much foresight. He purchased so much land that surrounded the city of Tucson. He partitioned it and developed it in the ways that he saw fit, obviously based on, feasibility studies. The city had to allow him to do these developments, but he's developed mobile home parks out there, which is very different than mobile home parks here in the Northeast, like beautiful parks, mobile homes in, mountainside, scenic, beautiful areas, like real retirement destinations, actual affordable housing, which is something I think we have a real shortage of in the country with all this high-end multifamily development. The affordable housing kind of gets pushed to the side, particularly mobile home parks. Which is something I'm interested in doing down the road, and I think you guys are as well, based on our previous conversations. But, he always told me, don't buy something you aren't comfortable holding long term. So worst case scenario, if you can't sell it, if the market turns and the refinance doesn't make sense, you better at least be able to hold that thing and, be able to weather the storm until the exit is more attractive, for sure. And I think that's something important to remind people of in this climate, because it's easy to forget that times can get bad when you've had 2 straight years of, really more like 14 straight years, like since the crash of insane appreciation. There's a lot of real estate investors out there that, probably think they're God's gift because they were buying from, 2009 to 2015, when you really couldn't lose. But it's important to keep that in mind, I think.
It's definitely a good point. Where do you see it going now? Because we have been on this crazy stretch.
Yeah, the music has to stop at some point, right? It's, it's tough. Like, I'm looking at folks paying insane numbers for properties they're holding as rentals. What's your cap rate at that point? What's your cash-on-cash return on investment? And to me, real estate is not a passive asset class, right? There's a lot of great tax benefits. There's people much wealthier than I that can afford to buy properties at a break even or a loss because it makes sense for them personally for the tax benefits. I've seen it happen. Properties that I've owned, properties that I've managed have been bought all cash, out of state investors, really just looking for a place to park their money as a hedge against the insane inflation we've been seeing recently. it makes sense for them. But at some point, this insane appreciation year over year, it has to stop. You know, we've had these artificially low interest rates, really 0% to 2% Fed funds rate, you know, over the long term. That's kind of unheard of. You know, you talk to older school guys and they remember when interest rates were 15, 17, 18%, you know, and people are going crazy because they're at 5, 6% right now. You know, so I think with that, a lot of folks are going to lose some serious buying power. And I think you're going to see a lot of buyers leave the market or buyers become renters. You know, and I think that's a lot of the reason why you have these big iBuyers, these big, you know, private equity groups, hedge funds, the Blackstones, the BlackRocks of the world going out and buying up a ton of single family, multifamily real estate. You know, you're having people that are going to be forced into renting. You're having people that are going to, you know, have to look at these affordable housing type opportunities. So I think we're going to see, I don't want to say a crash, so to speak. I definitely don't think, you know, some folks say we're going to see another '08. I definitely don't think that's going to happen. There was a lot of other factors at play then. But I think I wouldn't be surprised to see the market, you know, flatten out a bit, not be on such an insane, you know, appreciation trend. Maybe we see a little bit of a plateau, price correction of sorts, I think is definitely overdue, for sure, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, Corey said similar. The only thing he said was it's probably going to, damn, hopefully I'm right. If I'm not mistaken, what he said was very similar to what you said, but he thinks it's going to last a little longer for it to correct because he's saying there's like that additional wave now. So you have iBuyers, then you have like older investors who are like same thing, parking their money. Then you have investors, and then you have retail. So because of that extra like iBuyers, like when the original wave is over, you're going to have these people that were dying to buy a house. Mm-hmm. Retail wise, that's going to extend it a little longer than what everyone anticipated, but similar to you.
That makes sense.
Because like there's like a lot of people on the sideline right now that might not be affected by like everything that's going to happen, but they're dying to buy a house. So he said there's going to be a little delay. That's what he thought. But yeah.
That makes sense. I don't see a crazy crash coming in the near future, but it has to plateau at some point. It has to cool off or potentially correct, because, you know, 14 or 13 years straight of appreciation is just kind of, you know, it's insane, to be honest with you. You know, folks paying 40, 50, 60, $100,000 over asking is nuts. I did a second 203K. The last one that I did, a few offers I put in 20 or 30 over ask because I knew there was a value add play to be had being a contractor, that would allow me to justify paying over ask, and I was getting blown out of the water. Like I went 30K over ask on a property in West Orange. Somebody came in 110 over ask. And we're talking, this was like, you know, $450,000 property, appraising at $450,000. So this guy's bringing that additional funds to close. It's insane.
Just curious, what was like the ARV on that, if you remember? Ballpark.
The ARV for what I was going to do, I don't know what he did.
Yeah.
But the ARV that I was going to do, I would say was low sixes.
Got you.
It was a single story home, but it had a massive basement. I think a 1,200 square foot basement, unfinished, no bathroom. All the plumbing there set up to have a beautiful full bath. I was going to do another full bath, bedroom, full downstairs den/living room. You literally could have added an additional 1,200 square foot of living space. I'm not sure if that's what these folks did, but that was, you know, insane to see that it went that far over.
That's crazy, yeah.
The Florida market has been pretty crazy too. Like people would just pay retail, like even on the wholesale level, like there's just no competition. Like you don't even know how people run the deals. Like maybe, like you said, like they're just parking money there and they're just kind of waiting for the appreciation.
I think that's what it is.
But it's like untouchable. Like it doesn't make any sense to us or any.
I've never had like the feedback that the wholesalers were treating me like trash. You know, normally like, you know, because like we come in and we're like professional, we respect. They're like the guy that Jagger talks to a lot. Because he was getting we were like, bro, you're like at one point Jack was like, it's so crazy how we're always like 20, 30K off. And the guy's like, it's crazy how everyone always buys them. and the guy would agree with us, but he's like, yeah, I was like, I throw it up and people are getting them.
Yeah, it's like 300 asking price, ARV 340.
Yeah.
With renovation needed.
Yeah.
So it's like it's like how do
So
people buy
thin.
those deals?
It's so thin.
Well, it's weird because you talk about hedge funds or big companies and stuff,
Yeah.
and they're basically, I don't know if they don't know or they're just parking money, but you saw Zillow hit it, like got hit. You know, they're just putting in
It's reckless.
something that would buy for 200, they'll buy for 240. Like, you know, it's a good deal. I don't know if they don't know, if they don't have the systems, or if they're just like, I don't give a shit. I'm gonna fucking put money there, and then when it plateaus or something, then they get hit. But it's a different game right now.
Yeah, it's tough because you have to put on a totally different hat, and I'm not at the point to think like those guys think. You know what I mean? Like, there was a property that I managed in Lodi. It sold for, I think, $825,000. It was a 3-family, huge driveway, kind of an anomaly in that market. You know, 3 families with big driveways in Bergen County aren't very common. But with the rent that was being collected, delinquent tenants, it just didn't make sense. But the gentleman called me, and basically he just straight up said, I'm looking for a place to park my cash. He owned a really successful dental practice, making millions of dollars a year. He's looking for a good appreciation hedge, get the tax benefits. As long as it breaks even, he's fine. They're looking at the market much different than you and I, for sure.
I think so, and I think that's where you have to adjust and change your game. Who knows? Maybe partner with some of those guys, and
yeah, or just the Sam Zell method, right? Zig while they zag. If they're throwing a bunch of money in these multifamilies, parking it at break even levels, like you guys are doing, go Airbnbs, get the cash flow elsewhere.
Yep.
Have a different strategy while that plays out over there. However, the multifamily market shakes out over the next 2-3 years, maybe there's an opportunity, maybe there's not, but shift your chips to where there is an opportunity. Do the big value adds, do the add a level flips where you can turn around 6-figure spreads on the profit. Maybe it takes a little longer, like Ryan said, but the money's there. Don't get caught in a pissing match with guys that have millions to burn on cash offers, because you're going to lose every time.
Yeah, that's what it is. We're just gonna lose every time.
Right.
Yep.
Oh, okay, cool. I'll edit that part
Nice.
out.
yeah,
We can kind of wrap this section. We can keep talking.
yeah.
Kind of end it, and then we'll just keep rolling.
All right, cool. I still don't know how to wrap things up like smoothly. I'm gonna throw a couple out and we'll see what happens.
So Tyler, great having you.
Oh, there it is. That's good.
You want to do it?
No,
Yeah, you want to wrap it up?
no, Ronnie's a rapper.
Yes. You gotta ditch the pitch, man. We're recording. We're rolling.
And we're
All right.
edit that whole part out.
We're gonna edit all this out.
Yeah.
This will be an outtakes. No, but Tyler, honestly, man, thank you so much
Yeah, no problem.
for coming in.
Thank you, guys.
No, I appreciate you, man.
How do we find you, Tyler?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
To be honest with you, I'm like an old man with the social media stuff. It's terrible. I am on
Most doers are though, but we have to change that. But
that's one of my goals. I wanna get more active on LinkedIn, Instagram. I have an Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, but it's crazy. I'm in the field all day, taking calls, working, whatever it might be. But definitely, I would say LinkedIn, I'm big on there, and Instagram as well. It's my last name, DEUEL_93. And then LinkedIn, just my first name, Tyler, last name Dual, DEUEL. Hit me up on there. I should be getting a bit better with content creation. Nothing like this, but at least some progress photos of the construction projects and a little bit more content on the real estate deals for sure.
Boom.
what's your company name?
Construction side, it's Breathe Easy Remodeling LLC, and then the real estate company is Lot F Investments.
Gotcha. Cool. Yeah, and I'll add all that to the description as well. Yeah. So with that being said, Mike, cue the music.
All right, let's do this.
This music?
Yeah, let's professional. Tyler, thanks again for coming in.
Thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you
Thanks,
guys.
Tyler.
How long was that?